What is going on, guys? Noon here with MMO Play, bringing you guys a quick build guide for Crusaders in patch 2.4 or Season 5. Now, I'm going to show you guys how to build the non-set build for Crusaders. Now, what does that mean? It's a very interesting way to kind of describe a character, as classes did get very interesting this season, and rolling with a 6 set is not the most viable way to kind of build a class anymore. There are some other viable options through some different means. So I'll go ahead and start breaking down and kind of show you how this class or how this build works. Now, there is a set build for Crusaders this season, but this one is a lot more fun, I gotta say, personally. So starting off, what makes this build so good without using a set is actually this set bonus from the rings. I know, it's kind of ironic, but while you have these two rings equipped, while it's the only set bonus that it gives you, it increases your damage by 100% for every ancient item that you have equipped. Now, that could be very good or it could be very bad. Now, these builds take a lot of farming, and you will need a lot of ancient rolls to make your builds hit very hard, which is not bad, but it just takes a little bit more time to get these builds optimized. So generally you're going to want this 2 set for the rings, and pretty much the build is kind of easy going for items that you need specifically from there on out. So you need these rings to get the bonus for that, and generally after that there's going to be a few items you need specifically, but generally it's kind of free game to what you get, so as long as it's an ancient roll. So as you can see, my shoulders, they are ancient, nothing specific. Items become indestructible. I can switch that out for whatever I want, whenever, if I find a better roll on an item. Our helm, not ancient. Our chest piece isn't ancient. Like I said, nothing specific really. Just kind of looking for specific, or not specific, we're kind of just looking for ancient rolls on any kind of legendary item we can get our hands on to increase our damage. So the items that we do need specifically for this build that's going to make it very viable and make it work is the bracers. This is the first part of the build that we need specifically. Is blessed shield damage is increased by 442%, give or take what you roll on it. This is what I got. It's an okay roll, not too bad. It increases the damage quite a bit, and really helps with our damage output on top of the set bonus ring. So really good. You're going to want these bracers. It's gonna or these wrists, I should say. It's gonna really increase your damage output from Blessed Shield quite a bit. Next, we're gonna need the shield over here. This shield is very important and essential to the build because Blessed Shield ricochets an additional 4 times. This could be up to 5 or 6 times. This is a low roll, but you can get it higher and higher depending on the rolls you get for the shield. So this was a low roll for me, but you can get it up to 6, which is not bad. It's really good. There's also a weapon you can acquire, which I do not have for this build, but this build is still very viable at the point it is right now, where every time Blessed Shield bounces, it increases the damage by, I believe it's 30%, which is really nice. It increases the ability of speed clearing with this build, as well as pushing some greater risks and increasing your damage output, which is really nice. As for our weapon, ideally we would want that weapon to increase the damage every time the Blessed Shield bounces, but for now we do not have that. We just have this 2-handed ancient roll, so that's okay. We get 100% damage boost just from the ancient roll from the weapon, so nothing very specific right here. So generally, as far as that goes, that's kind of all we need. We're just going to keep hunting for ancients for our set to kind of further increase damage. Now, as far as the cube goes, we will need some specific things in here. Now, I have nothing for the ring right now. You can kind of play around with whatever you want. You don't need a ring of Royal Grandeur. You don't need anything specifically, really. If you want the ring that kind of splits damage between the wearers, that's really good for damage reduction and pushing greater risk. But generally, I haven't really thrown anything in here yet, and I've been doing pretty good. You can play around with the ring slot if you want to. Nothing really specific I've noticed that's and helped you quite a bit over here. But as for our armor piece, our armor slot, we want Achilles Quan, which is, or Achilles Cuirass, my bad, which is, while you're above 90% primary resources, all damage taken is reduced by 50%. This is huge. This has increased your survivability a lot. Now, you may be wondering, how are we going to keep our resources above 90% when Blessed Shield costs resources? Yes, I know, interesting, but that's where this weapon comes into play. This weapon removes the cost completely from Blessed Shield. So this is going to be your main skill. This is going to be, you're going to spam it like crazy, and basically you're never going to spend resources, and you constantly have 100% uptime on the 50% damage reduction, which is amazing. It's great. It works in really great synergy, and as you can see, this is the build's kind of pulling itself together, and it's becoming pretty good with a lot of these different items. And overall, it did take a little bit of grinding to get this build going. Don't get me wrong, the free set is definitely a good way to get started with Crusaders, but this build is just so much more fun, I gotta say. Just for personal account, I gotta say, I enjoyed this build quite a bit more. Now, as far as our legendary gems go, we're going to go ahead and roll with Pain Enhancer. Now, Pain Enhancer may not be good for other builds, but it works really great for this build because for each enemy bleeding, it increases your attack speed by 3%. So the more amount of Blessed Shields we can get out bouncing around and throw out in a short duration of time, it's really going to up our damage output, so it makes it really essential to this build. So Pain Enhancer, fantastic, increases your attack speed, tons of bouncing shields all over the place. Next, you want Bane of the Trap for increased damage against enemies under the effect of controlling and parrying effects. This is not ranked 25 yet, but generally, always a good gem that works pretty well in most builds. A lot of damage enhancement, so pretty good. I recommend this one. And then last but not least, Bane of the Stricken. Bane of the Stricken works really, really great for this build because each time an enemy is hit by your attack, it increases the damage it takes by 1.06%, give or take whatever level you have on it. So you have a lot of shields are thrown out, it's bounced around quite a bit, enemies are constantly taking enhanced damage for every time it's hit, which is really good and works really nicely with this build. Now as far as our skills go, let's go ahead and open it up over here. My bad. You can see we got Blessed Shield. Blessed Shield, we're going with the holy rune on this for Shattering Throw. Earlier shield, dealing 430% weapon damage. The damage is increased by the block chance you have on your character, so the higher the block chance, the more damage it does. Generally, this is kind of the best rune to go with. It does a lot of damage, and I highly recommend this one. For our primary, we're going with Heaven's Fury. This is a really great skill. You can kind of just toss it down. It does its thing. It does a lot of damage. It's really nice. We have Judgment. Judgment passes a judgment on all enemies, kind of stunning them and immobilizing them. Really good for kind of locking enemies down if you're having trouble with elite mobs and so on. And I don't know if anybody else has noticed it this season, but it works on treasure goblins as well. If you throw a judgment down on a treasure goblin, it will keep them in place for 6 seconds. Now, I thought this was very interesting. I don't know if it's a bug or something that was always around, but first time playing Crusaders, I've noticed that this works on treasure goblins, and I gotta say it's pretty amazing with rolling with groups because you can clear those treasure goblin glyphs in a few seconds and reap all those rewards from it. So yeah, I wanted to make note of that to you guys if none of you have ever caught on to that or if that's always been a thing. But yeah, it works on treasure goblins. It's fantastic. So next we're going with Akarat's Champion. We're rolling with the Prophet rune on this. Gives us damage enhancement, which is not bad. That's always good. Last, we're going next we're going with Laws of Valor. This is basically more attack speed, more critical hit damage, which is really good, so more damage amp. And then last, we're going with Iron Skin with the Steel Skin rune, basically survivability. So that's generally how the class works. It's very simple. You don't need a lot of things, but generally when everything is together, it works in really nice synergy. And all you really need for this build is to farm a lot of those ancients, which could take some time, but the build really starts to pull itself together once you start getting those ancients and you have that 2 set of the ring. The ring is the most important part to really make this build good. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into a Greater Rift and kind of show you how the build works and what it hits on enemies. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the video for you guys and meet you guys kind of when I'm close to killing a Rift Guardian. Alright guys, so here we are in a Greater Rift, or not a Greater Rift, a regular Rift on T8. Now this build will require a little bit more optimization on my part, but is definitely able to push a lot higher numbers in Greater Rifts and speed clear T10s. I just need to acquire a few more Ancients, but generally I want to show you the potential that the build has right now. It hits pretty good. It's really, really optimal and really nice for T8 at the point I have it right now, which is not bad. I enjoy it quite a bit, and its speed clears through a lot of these pretty darn quickly. Now I got trapped there, ended up dying, but it's okay, it's fine. we can go ahead and keep continuing on. And I kind of want to show you the damage output that this build really has. Now, initially on the first hit, this it hits a lot. It does a lot of damage, which makes it really good for single target and taking out Rift Guardians. So in group play, this is an awesome build. In solo play, it's an awesome build as well. And everything about this build is pretty viable depending on how you want to play. But optimization and a little bit of farming is really key with this build. It will take a little while before you can really get it ready, as the ancient rolls on legendaries is super essential on getting the damage up on this build, and will take some time. But generally, it's a lot of fun, and for what I have now, clearing T8s and speedrunnings with friends and stuff like that, it works pretty well, and I enjoy it quite a bit. But as you can see here, the numbers on the damage output for this build kind of jump around a little bit. And the initial hits hit about 1 to 1.5 bills, and they'll go up from there depending on the weapon that I have, if I can get increased damage on it, as well as the ancients of that I have equipped in my inventory. But not only that, is the bouncing around damage tends to go down a little bit, but it bounces so many times, the damage kind of it kind of makes up for that, for the low damage, seeing as though how many times it bounces. The initial hit is very high, but the bounces bounce around so many times that the damage is kind of made up. So let's go ahead and go back and find this Rift Guardian. I can show you guys the damage output on a single target, which is extremely high, and we should have no problem taking out this Rift Guardian. Let's go ahead and take him out. Let's go ahead and pop our cooldowns real quick so we can survive. And the Rift Guardian on a T8 is dead just like that. The single target damage on this build is massive. It's crazy. And it's really good for greater rifts. It works fantastic. But like I said, a little bit of optimization is really required with this build, and a lot of farming. But generally, it's really fun. It works. It's viable. And these non-set builds are great. I'm glad they're a thing, and it really allows us to explore new options with various classes, and this is definitely one of them. This is an interesting way to play Crusaders, and it's one that I've enjoyed quite a bit. So if you guys have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. But until next time, guys, I will talk to you later.